Marie, all alone her beach of eternal twilight, slowly traced her fingers along her cheek. She was seeing them for the first time. She knew what they were, but she never thought she would ever shed them herself. She felt something stir within her heart, something vexing and frustrating, but it wasn't entirely unpleasant. For to say it was pleasant would have been a lie too. She witnessed something similar just a short while ago. Something about how the one being rejected ends up in the worst position if the rejector breaks out in tears. She had no idea what to do, now that he was the one crying. For some reason she had been convinced of that. Her guillotine had shattered, and she lost all connection with the man. Under normal circumstances, she should have known she would never meet him again. Marie never understood the concept of reasoning all that much, but this feeling wasn't the result of mere wishful thinking. After all, it seemed impossible that someone like him would fail to have another plan in mind. Even if countless other things eluded her comprehension, Marie understood Cagliostro at least a little bit. And that little in truth pertained to the very core of his being. For that man, the very concept of the unexpected did not exist. It was the very core of the curse that bound him. As such, nothing under the sun could betray his expectations until he fulfilled his goal. In short, he had foreseen even this particular turn of events. Alessandro di Cagliostro could never abandon Marguerite Breuil, and so this tale, with her as its main diva and crowning jewel, could never end like this. It would continue on and on as many times as needed. And in one of those, Marie faded in the twilight with a smile. The time had come for her to take a brief rest. But that was all. Nothing beyond that.
ああ、心配はいらぬよ、マルグリット。そう待たせはせん。
Mercury's consciousness returned to the devil's castle. He slowly turned around, gracing the boy and the girl before him with a smile.
やられたな。見事なりと言っておこうか、二人とも。
They were the ones who pushed Ren and Beatrice to victory, thus commenting Machinas and Eleanor's defeat. If not for those two, both would have doubtlessly lost their respective
バ
battles.
ルキュリアに約束をさせられた手前、保護にするわけにもいくまい。少なくとも事の決着がつくまでは、あれらを蘇らせることは控えよう。まあ、放っておいても獣殿がやるだろうがな。しかし彼がやる場合は時間がかかる。この城のレギオン一つ一つを再生させることほど簡単にはいかん。何にせよ、現状戦力は減退したというわけだ。
So why not celebrate the victory? When met with the dismayed expression of the two, Mercurius merely cocked his to the side. Their wish had come true, the war had yet to end, but the battle was won. Still the two merely regarded the smiling obsidian shade in silence. But following a short pause, Shiro suddenly raised his gun and struck Kasumi's head with its grip. Kasumi collapsed helplessly on the floor before she had the time to react. Shiro let her fall without lifting a single finger to help, and instead heaved a profound sigh.
こいつだけでも外に出すことはできねえか。
Kasumi was a stout-hearted woman who wouldn't be intimidated by a bit of danger, which made her presence all the more problematic. It was a bad idea to let her tag along any further.
こいつが死ねばそっちは都合いいんだろうが。今まで何もしなかったってことはどうでもいいんだろう。だったら度量のでかいとこ見せてくれよ。追い詰められたバカが何するか正直想像したくもないんでな。
Kasumi's and Shiro's silence stemmed from a different reason. Devour was at a loss for words, unable to comprehend Mercury's cheery attitude despite his army suffering major losses. Shiro, on the other
お
hand,
前狙ってやらせたろ。そうするしかないと分かってたろ。
was frustrated with himself for having danced to the man's tune. Even if he had no other choice, he felt threatened by the obstinate trade. The vice commander of the Longinus race in Orden, Calcraft, Mercurius, he was more dangerous than all the other bastards combined. It was not something Shiro would have known, but the very fact that he could touch Mari had defied certain rules. Rather than pulling her out, the two should have died the moment they took her hand. The fact they weren't lying on the floor as a pair of headless corpses was already unexpected in itself.
お前と話してると片っ端からデジャブりやがる。狂いそうだぜ。なんだこりゃ。
It meant that he was in a situation where he couldn't possibly die. The uncomfortable feeling of being forced to survive by an invisible power. Something was not right, and Shiro couldn't shake the feeling that the man before him was responsible for it all. All the others, Wilhelm and Schreiber included, must have also felt this ominous dread of incongruity when facing the man. It felt almost like this shade of man clothed himself in security and repulsion, invoking anxiety in all who laid eyes upon him. And to make matters worse, he would never kiss his bubbling, turning that same anxiety into a surge of irritation, and ultimately a murderous instinct to kill and obliterate. Yet at the same time, it felt almost not right to kill the man. This wasn't an issue of possibility. Instead, it felt like the very idea of slaying him would invite terrible disaster upon the person who dared conceive the notion. Shiro didn't know how to properly explain the feeling, but long story short, he wanted nothing to do with the bastard. He was the walking embodiment of foreknowledge, the very phenomenon Shiro hated more than anything in the world.
お前はなんだ。いや、そもそも俺は。
Faced by the other's existential question, the obstinate Mercury made a smile and
私は
Shiro had underestimated the wave of the answer, the mind-boggling truth he had been searching for. In that moment, his unwavering calmness maintained even in the face of death shattered like a piece of glass.
おおてめえ
At that point, he had lost his very ability for words. Possessed by undiluted, unbridled fury for the very first time in his life, Shiro began firing his gun like a madman, and each of those moments, the flickering mass of flash, the smell of gunpowder, the sound of exploding bullets, everything. It had been painfully known to him, burned to his memory, for knowledge, rolling him, for knowledge, whenever he looked, for knowledge, for knowledge, for knowledge, for knowledge, for knowledge, alright.
合格だ少年よ。私を知って私を殺そうとできるものなど片手で足りるほども存在しない。
Kasumi's father? No, that wouldn't make sense.
故にもう少し教えてやろう。君が君である理由など単に都合がいいからだよ。
Who the hell is he then? The obsidian rope exploded and began enveloping the surroundings, swallowing everything in its path. It was as if a new space had been born and began to expand within the Valhalla. Devil? God? What? I'm not that went far beyond the comprehension of mortal mind, yet at the same time. Its expanding world felt incredibly due to Shiro, or rather, to everyone that laid eyes upon it. After all.
当然だろう。これは君らの言う日常だからな。
A world everyone had been familiar with. The very embodiment of foreknowledge.
何か劇的なものでも期待したかね。私に関われば未知に触れられるとでも思ったかね。真逆だよ。なぜなら私はこういうものだ。
I still want to know what you said to him
そこ
then.
で問う。
Their exchange was swallowed up by the darkness. No one could tell what the man asked, nor how Shiro answered. Yet in that moment, 7 battlefields and 7 fallen warriors lit up brightly, like a beacon in Shiro's mind.
私を殺したいかならばよし。君を好んでいるのはさしずめこれかな。
Mercury melted in the ceiling, his obsidian robes fluttering like the wings of a raven, heralding the death of all things. The whole of Suhara seemed the miniature Shambhala rested in the palm of his hand. One part of it, Suhara, the location of the sixth, had flickered.
アハとナウシズ、スコーピオ。若干星座は食い違うが、シュライバーは譲れんのでな。許されよ。 その魂をアデプトと認めマナーを送ろう、ゲオルギウス。今より黒煙卓は再生する。先の頼みは君が私の役に立てば叶えると約束しよう。
Confused. Really confused. Thousands of pieces of paper enveloped and swallowed Shiro. All of them were pages of a book penned in blood, containing the palpable memories of excruciating pain and misery. Elizabeth Bathory, the curse that came to being with her final breath. Shiro's left arm began resembling itself as the countless pages began to envelop his body, fusing with his soul. His rebirth took a mere few seconds, yet by the time he came to, Mercurius and Casimir were no longer anywhere in sight. A new fang of the beast had been born. There was no way of telling what events its advent would cause. A new piece abruptly appeared on a chessboard in the middle of a checkmate. It was unclear whether it belonged to the side of white or black. However, one thing remained certain, that no pieces would fail to recognize the position of their king. What the fuck is going on? While that were king in question.
なるほど。甘く見すぎたか。
Not K-Sacred, much like the bite of an ant would do nothing to a tongue, there existed an enormous and insurmountable wall between the two. His words were uttered in response to the piece of advice given by the only being capable of existing as his equal.
ルークとクイーンが討ち取られ、私はポーンに積まされる。確か、そういう筋書きだったかな。カールよ。その慶願、相変わらずだ。
A drop of blood trickled down to the floor, albeit minuscule in size. A tiny cut did indeed appear on his finger as he caught the blade. The sword was not scarred in hue, for K still did not possess the power to harm him to this extent. However, after being shot down by Messerschmitt, it struck a violent plank on the floor, propelling it straight towards Reinhardt. The fourth way to break through the impregnable divine vessel. Machina's fist, a legion of souls, a chink in the armor, and finally...
確かにその手もあったな。
He could hurt himself, and indeed, Karl too had warned him during their game of chess, claiming it was the very fact that served the cause of his defeat. Okay. He could no longer contain his laughter, which we can't really listen to because it's terrible. Whether this was mere coincidence or a sure trick, it hardly mattered. He was bleeding, he felt pain, he could feel the beat of his own heart for the first time in 60 long years. He was indeed alive. Okay, he needed to express his gratitude towards the girl. This throbbing, this pain, the joy of battle that this girl rejuvenated in his being. Would she face him with all she had, this gallant lioness of a maiden?
それまでだ。
Kay, with nothing to defend herself with after letting go of her weapon, had been swallowed by an army skeletons. Reinhardt could not even find her face. But her heart still beat alive. She had yet to die, that was all he needed. The Legion, mere seconds away from tearing the girl to shreds, obediently dispersed with a single word from its master. Kay, finally escaping a prison of bones, looked like a ragdoll that spent a night with a rabid dog. She was beaten nearly to death. Reinhardt knew that would not be the end of her. Her heart still beat. She would grip her blade, set her heart ablaze, and sing her oath of fortitude. Prove that you were worthy of participating in my Irae. With or without the beast's orders. She would stand up as many times as needed. As long as her heart pumped blood, as long as her hands grasped steel. Even in the face of the food that was the very incarnation of war and hellfire. She was just a woman and the cruelest child to boot. Yet precisely because of that. Grasping Hikiro Kane once more, she held her song of determination. Despite knowing it would only bring joy to the man before her, she could not lie to her own heart. After all, she was certainly not one for long-winded bouts of wit.
降りてきなさい、ハイドリ卑怯。失望はさせません。
Okay. The beast called the Nice Narrow, the Devil's Throne, trembled as if the Verkans had been shivering with uncontained jubilance.
バルキュリアは死んだぞ。
But he would have the two Mitsunia.
共に我がエインフェリアとなるがいい。これ以上、Kに離別の悲しみなど与えはせん。では、さて。
The monarch of destruction, the golden beast, stood up and began descending the steps of his throne, the holy lance held firmly in his grip. The man was the embodiment of despair, but rather than terror, Kate's heart filled to the brim with fighting spirit. Beatrice had perished. Kate would never meet her again. That was sad and frustrating beyond words, however.
再会はできたから。
They hadn't the time to have a proper conversation or even embrace one
同
another.
じ時、同じ場所で、同じ敵を前に剣を並べた。それだけでもう十分。
Fuji was likely the one responsible. He would never admit it, and Kay wouldn't ask, but at least for now she wanted to express her gratitude towards him. And her brother would most likely forgive them. Thanks to him, she could finally become a woman of her
離
own.
別を胸に忘れずに誇りとして私は生きます。誰もがそうしているように。あなたの先祖としての再会なんて冗談。ごめん被ります。
違うな。それが救いだ、レオンハルト。だがそうやって否定を続けろ。未来永劫、永遠に。私、カールの大隊には、
Oops.
いささか惜しいよ。
Redheart's spear of destiny made a wide arc in the air. One could only guess the true power slumbering within his terrible legion of followers. Kay could only surpass the boundaries of her comprehension.
私、浮気はしませんよ。好きな男は一人だけです。
Yes! She wished Ren would stay away for just a while longer. She wanted to land at least hit or two on the bastard before he got here. He'd have to win, she'd curse him
で
otherwise.
は、終局と行こう。番ごと覆す様を見せてやる。
The holy lance of golden destruction soared towards her with Schreiber's speed, Eleanor's precision, and Machina's all-ending lethality. Yet in the face of that mortal danger, Kay displayed no fear, leaping violently towards her opponent. Unfortunately, I wasn't so rude a man as to let my woman be that reckless. Not allowing the flash of golden light to intimidate me. I jumped in between Sakura and Rika and rolled out of the lance's way by the skin of my teeth after grabbing the former by the waist.
ほう。
Didn't see that coming, bitch. Normally, his thrust should have been imbued with absolute depth, utmost speed, and by its nature, an inability to miss its mark. In other words, there was but one explanation for why we were still alive.
やっぱり、まだ本調子じゃないようだな。
Not even God could have evaded the thrust if the egg swastika had been opened. The Holy Lance was, after all, precisely that kind of weapon. So, as dodging it meant, Reinhardt was not at the peak of his power just yet. We still had a chance at beating him. More importantly...
プチカン、桜井。
She seems surprised. I managed to save her life. Sure, Reinhardt might not have been at the peak of his power, but challenging him to one-on-one fight was still beyond reckless.
人はせっかくかっこいいこと思ってたのに。
はあ？
もういい。藤井君はいっつも私の邪魔ばっかりする。諦めるわよ。ええ、どうせ私なんてバカみたいに空回ってるだけなんだし。
あ、その。
Confused? I wish she'd consider our situation a bit more, and it wasn't like she started being a fool for today or anything. In the case, I ignored Sakura and her grounding for now. All that mattered now was the man standing before us. Kinda.
アキナを倒したか。
We had to overcome Reinhardt Heydrich, the largest and final obstacle blocking our path.
けど俺一人の力でここまで来られたわけじゃない。らしいな。その件、いかにした？
His golden eyes fixed on Beatrice's sword in my hands. The phenomenon that saved my life was apparently a momentary disruption of the castle creation figment, invoked by Kay during her fight. In other words, not even he knew exactly what happened in that moment.
まさかな。カールの女を捨てたのか。K。あれなくして私の前に立ってどうする？興ざめだ。しらけさせる男よ。
I got killed by Reinhardt's casual swing of the lance and was still playing alongside Sakurai. Before I lifted my sword to parry just in time, it did little help.
根本的な霊覚の劣化。加えて内包する魂の枯渇。今の刑など半人前にも劣る。そんなざまで何をなすと？生異物を行使するための生異物。筆を選ばぬのは大したものだが、そんな代物では意味がない。針で山は崩せん。犬死にが望みか？愚かな真似をしたものだ。
Sakurai was the first to react to his condescending remarks. She squeezed the hilt of Beatrice's sword through my hand.
それ以上、彼女の意志と彼の選択を侮辱することは許さない。たとえ針でも、今のあなたなら突き崩せる。
Idiot, I had yet to give up either. I didn't come here to die. I knew better than anyone how sorry of a state we both were in. Sakurai was on the verge of death from thorough exhaustion, while I no longer had Mari to aid me. Even united, we were less powerful than a single man, but the same could be said of Reinhardt. The very fact we stood before him now meant that he had lost his 3 battalion commanders plus all the other obsidian table bastards had died. The beast had been robbed of his punks. Before us stood a lone king barefoot of mounts, knights, bishops, and rooks. Not even the queen remained.
住んでいるのはお前だ。
Reinhardt was the one under checkmate.
では、取ってみるかね。言われなくても。
そんな愚問、当たり前のことです。
In that moment, we both leaped
胸
forward.
よ、藤井君。
That was our
彼の
target.
亀裂はそこにある。
Here Hero Canal lit up in vivid flames as the Valkyrie's blade danced in azure lightning. If Kit currently had no soul dwelling within, it could make use of mine like it did with Beatrice. A fireball and a ball of lightning stayed the throne at once, yet Reinhardt.
万軍を凌駕する短期。そうした王がいる時点で、兵法など意味はない。
He stopped both our blades with a single finger, not even bothering to rely on his holy
生
lance.
産杯に亀裂があると。しかし、それがどうした小さき者ども。第八は未だ開かず、エインフェリアも傍らにおらず、故に、私を倒せると？少子、言ったはずだ。万ごと覆す様を見せてやると。
He slightly twisted his finger, swinging me off my feet like a
デ
whirlwind.
ウスエクスマキナの味はどうだった？
Reinhardt's face crushed into my solar plexus. He struck me with the gentleness of someone trying to pet a newborn kitten, yet the force was still enough to nearly tear my whole body to pieces.
どこを見ている？
Reinhardt didn't even touch Sakurai, and Mergler from him seemed to strike her like a giant iron hammer. She crashed into the wall, collapsing right next to me. At the same time, hundreds of seconds lunged at us in unison. Forcing my body to obey my command, I somehow managed to tumble out of their way. I'd almost forgotten what those walls and floors were made of. We were still in the bastard's personal hell, unless we were careful, it could very well swallow us at any moment. Reinhardt might have lost his fangs and claws, but his money mane was still intact, and naturally he himself, even his own, was not an opponent to be taken lightly.
私は昔から加減というものが増えてでな。しかし悲しいかな。全力を振り絞れたことは一度もない。
He looked down on us with a hint of lament and self-derision pervading his words. He had yet to experience what it meant to unleash one's true power, and he might leave the cosmos in ruins on his way to reaching that summit. His country, comrades, subordinates, and family, no one could keep up with his pace. A man who constituted a legion by himself, the voracious lord of the dead, his hunger never sated, even after millions slain and devoured.
ゆえ、その瞬間こそ渇望した。わかるか？ケイラは我が待望を成就するための先駆けだ。ここまで残った決意と覚悟、鮮烈かつ壮烈に、己が魂の美しきを歌うがいい。
I wonder where she remind me.
あがけ、私の愛しい人間よ。歌劇はまだ始まってもいない。
He thrust his right and lance towards us, meeting its golden teeth head-on would spell doom for the both of us. Sakura and I darted off in different directions, evading its cataclysm. Assault as the boom of the tremendous explosion left its wake filled our ears. A first kick of the wall, then the ceiling enlarged and rained hard again. This time our attacks were not fully synchronized. I ended up a touch faster, aiming at his right hand, the one that held the lance. Whether he dodged or parried, Reinhardt's first attack would come for me, which would give Sakurai ample time to strike his chest. The whole lance shifted, ready to move me down. Naturally, I wasn't blindly rushing into it with any sort of plan in mind. I stabbed the Valkyrie's sword in the ground and then swung from below, plucking a couple of dozen of Castle's legion skeletons with it. The mane of the beast was certainly a close threat on the battlefield, but we could also use it to our own advantage. Even if my sword was ineffective, I could at least induce him to hurt himself.
無駄だ。
The devil's golden eyes flashed, parting the sea of skeletons, thus letting the holy lance pass through unhindered. I just barely dodged the thrust in the last moment. Had he not spent a fraction of a second dispelling the second wall, I would have certainly been done for. Catching the shaft of his lance as it passed by me, I cried out. But in that moment, I felt as if my flesh and bones, my bare soul, had suddenly lit on fire and began evaporating. Fireworks exploded in front of my eyes as blood gushed forth from all over my body.
私以外の者にこの槍は触る。
I would not give it in to anyone but its one true master.
それは天罰というやつだ。名誉だろ？聖書に造形は深いかね？太古、喉の地に落ちたとされる星の鉄。誰も触れず近寄れず、決して消えずに燃え続けたというそれは、資格なき者たちを容赦なく焼き尽くした。トバルカインがこれを鍛え上げてからも、その特性は変わっておらん。筆を選ばぬ刑でも無理だ。そして、
Hitting me in the wall with one hand, he swung the lance with the other, hitting Sakurai's side with its bad end.
まだ認識が甘いようだな。言ったはずだぞ。歌えと。
He caught Sakurai with his left hand as she was propelled into the air from collision. He tossed me aside and pointed his lance at her.
一人、目の前で失わんと気が入らんか？黒煙卓の者どもは、皆この洗礼を受けたのを知っているかね？だが、言ったように槍の強罰は、持ち主以外を焼き尽くす。直接その身にステイグマを受けた者は一人もおらん。さて、どうかな、レオンハルト。K はこれに耐えられるか？耐えたとしても、なお私に歯向かえるか？ K の不退転、 俺の気概は称賛に値する。とはいえ佐賀でな、強固なものを見ると壊したくなるのだよ。ああ、耐えろ耐えろ、抗ってくれ。従順なだけの女はつまらん。私を失望させないでくれ。
A series of deafening screams echoed across the throne hall. The tip of the lance pressed against Sakura's side, undoubtedly her with the same pain of eternal punishment that I had just tasted. If that blade pierced her flesh and reached her soul, the stigma, the proof of an end her yar, would taint Sakura's very essence.
フロリアン・ガイア。
Yet before I could advance, the floor below me exploded, revealing countless skeletons blocking my way.
しばし見ていろ。血類を流せ。女を汚される屈辱はどうして個々に比類がない。正直私は未だに下船。カールが女を見限るなどありえんことだ。K、あの魔術師殿に秘策の一つや二つ授かったなら早々に開陳することを勧めよう。でなくば
Sakura screams and convulsions entered as the lance touched her flesh. Her consciousness seemed to have been completely washed over by raw agony, and yet I could do nothing to help her, despite it all happening right in front of my eyes.
私に全力を出させてやるとカールは約束したのだよ。ディエス入れに先駆けて私の上を満たしてやると。それがまこと。 K ならば V をもって証を立てろ。黒煙卓の者どもはそのためだけに存在した。ベイを、マレウスを、クリストフを、マキナを、ザミエルを、シュライバーを乗り越えここに至った K。 UK が K であったればこそ私の層が折り砕けた。奇跡とはすなわち必然。起こせる者がいるからこそ起きるのだ。再度言う。失望をさせるな。
Laying out a hollow from the bottom of my soul, I reached out towards the bastard. I ignored the countless skeletons clawing at my flesh. I completely blocked out all pain. Anger dominated my mind. My own powerlessness was driving me insane. I didn't care about my life or soul. All I wanted was to save Sakurai. I couldn't bear the thought of losing someone else I held dear. If Mercurius, if that man still had a trick up his sleeve. I needed it now, more than ever.
ならば仕方あるまい。
Reinhardt heaved a disappointed sigh as I literally shed bloody tears and returned his gaze back to Sakurai.
男を見る目がなかったな。だがよし。うい女とはそういうものだ。
But as the tip of the lance was about to penetrate Sakura's flesh,
私は
despite the divine flame of thermal punishment consuming her body from within, Sakurai's voice rang peaceful and serene.
私は後悔などしていません。見る目には自信があります。
She had always pressed onwards, no matter how arduous or bloody the path, with only iron zeal and blind stubbornness to accompany her. Her life embodied short-sightedness and narrow-mindedness.
私は生まれ変わったんです。彼のおかげで目覚めたんです。ハイドリヒ教。彼は約束してくれました。絶対にあなたを倒すと。知っていますか？主人公は無敵なんだそうですよ。
She still remembered the dumb line I'd blurted out.
その時、視界が開けました。ああ、そうなのかって。彼は必ずあなたを倒す。 とえここで私が死んでも。
Sakurai clasped the lance with both her hands and let out a resolute cry even as the hellfire scorched her. She met the base devilishly grilled in eyes with a stern glare, and declared that she trusted but one man in this world.
彼の話に、あなたは所詮邪魔者だ。いつまでもジャンル違いがのさばるんじゃない。たとえいつの時代にもあなたのような人の居場所はない。
Ignoring all these skills and started to drag me down, I swung my sword with all my strength. A tank made of bones burst apart and collapsed, and as the scum troops lost their command for a split second, I brushed them aside, fun breaking through the line.
バカが、このバカ女が。
I would win this no matter what. I most certainly told her I would never lose.
一番肝心なところを忘れてんじゃねえ。
What good was victory if I was left alone in the end?
お前が。
There was no point if she wasn't there to say it.
俺に惚れなきゃ意味がねえだろ。
I had no time. The distance was simply too large. I wouldn't reach them in time even if I put my all into a mad dash. I only had one option. Ignoring all reason and common sense, I activated my creation figment. No, I went beyond that. What? How did you went beyond that? The craving burning within my heart was to not let anyone else die. That was all. Wellsburg trembled. This time the phenomenon didn't merely flicker out of existence in the blink of an eye. The whole place began to collapse. Weltal, the living hell molded from the bones of billions, would fall.
まさかな。いや。なるほど。そうか。
The battalion of three, having been responsible for maintaining a large portion of the castle, were gone, and the Ape swastika had yet to open. The threats connecting the castle to reality unraveled, and without their commanders' countless souls scattered in this array, Reinhardt's hellish, impregnable creation figment had grown utterly fragile. Yet this was a feat not even millions could achieve.
K ならあるいはカールの血を受けし者の証。ついに証明したな。御敵よ。
Reinhardt tossed the girl aside and clasped his lance with both hands. The time to sink the first movement of the irae had finally come. A craving denied the very concept of death, similar to, yet also completely different from Reinhardt's Waltal. He was reborn by claiming new Achnenerbe. As such, even his creation figment has been altered.
面白い。
A ridiculous leap in power, indicating that the boy's unusually high affinity with Achnenerbe was no laughing matter after all. He need not concern himself with a single brush, and could even separate and activate different cravings, a true legion within a single man's body. Who else could achieve something so utterly insane? What was this, if not a scherzo, indeed a devilish fit for an overture? The piece was from reaching its final, and Reinhardt would make sure the song would last a long while.
メメントモリ。私のあり方を否定するか。よかろう。
In that case, Reinhardt would shatter the boy's beloved craving to pieces.
ネモアンテモルテンベアタス。いるからな。
The divine vessel ought to have been proud, for the boy had embodied his most ardent wish. Bereft of love, Riva found himself lost. At the crossroads of eternal life, a path he trod till madness claimed his mind. Acknowledging death as the ultimate despair, the poor, wretched man had nonetheless been drawn to the power of destruction like a moth to a flame. Due to that contradiction, however, he could never attain what the boy had just molded in concrete form, and with strength enough to threaten even Reinhardt's own Weltal.
おお、至福もたらす奇跡の御業よ。汝の傷を塞いだ槍から聖なる血が流れ出す。
The Holy Lance unveiled its true form through a blinding flash, unleashing the myriads of fallen warriors once devoured by its tip. The Legion of the Beast, the Devil's Castle, housing millions of immortal souls, was once the way from the emanating into the physical realm. However,
お控えなさい、獣殿。
there was no point for Reinhardt to try and force something he could simply not do at the moment. What I did upon seeing that aberration manifest itself might have been a mistake. A moment before my sword hit Reinhardt, I changed the trajectory of my leap and caught Sakurai's body flying in the air instead. Saving her from being swallowed by the wall of skeletons was worth sacrificing the finishing blow for, but
何の真似だカール。
I might have been instinctively trying to avoid the abominable think of a man abruptly manifesting himself right next to Reinhardt.
少々ハメを外しすぎではありませんかな。あなたらしくもない。
Indeed, this abomination was. Although I was seeing him for the first time, I could tell.
カール・クラフト。
Sakurai uttered the man's name in a trembling voice. The fact he stood right next to Reinhardt, treating him like an equal, was really surprising in itself, but above all
同
that,
じ声。同じ顔。
the freak's uncanny resemblance to me was driving me insane. I only considered the possibility of having a long-lost twin brother. Substitute, father, creator? I'd rather not even think about it, even though the truth was staring me right in the face.
なんだよ、こいつは。
I was experiencing the strangest of sensations. After a moment of looking at the guy, I would suddenly be unable to apprehend his voice or shape again. I would remember the fact that he looked like me, but I'd have no concrete recollection of his actual form. Almost like he was a being from some other dimension, like I was staring at a moving illustration.
ここで流出などしていかがするのか。ゲットは壊れず、城は消え、大戦を飲み込んでまで作ったバルハラが無に帰すだけ。人、それを取ろうという。率直に申し上げて愚虚ではないかな。
であれば K、 未だに基地を感じるか。
Forgetting our very existence when Cruz and the Beast exchanged words. Neither of them gave us as much as a single
告
glance.
白しよう。実のところ、私は何も感じていない。城がこのようになったのと同時にな。答えろカール。何が起きた？
さて、御身に思想が見えるとでも言えばご満足か。などとまあ、冗談はともかく。単純に今は中庸ということでしょう。基地ではなく、道でもなく、右でも左でもない分岐路だと思えばよろしい。ゆえ、まずは第8までを開き切ることこそ寛容かと。でなくば左右の認識もできん。とはいえ。
Following Paul's, he glanced in my direction. His very gaze made my hair stand on end. I could tell the bastard was cackling inside.
困りましたな。彼はあなたのバルハラを崩しかけている。死者を許さぬというただそれだけ。他の誰かならば何の効果もなせぬ技だが、あなたにだけは実に効いているようだ。どうされる？私としては早々に戯れを切り上げるべきだと存ずるが。
そしてそうしなければ、この城ごと怪奇の渦に巻き込まれる徒労に終わると。たわけが。
Reinhardt let out a disdainful chuckle, although it still carried a certain hint of joviality.
それをさせぬのはどこの誰だ。第8を開けというなら、今すぐマキナとザミエルを再生させてみるがいい。あれらを飛ばせば一瞬にして型がつく。カールよ。女に甘いのは相変わらずか。
バルキュリアとの約束をたがえるわけにもいきますまい。少なくとも事の決着がつくまではと。
ならば。
そう、ならば。
Standing next to each other, the two devils looked down upon us. Yet amidst that, Machina's final words echoed in my mind, overpowering even the blood-curdling terror emanated by the bastards. He urged me to heed his words, at least this one time. He claimed that no one could defeat Reinhardt, that no one could flee Karl Kraft. The two heads of the obsidian table have been absolute, possessing no flaws when united. However, if there was one way to defeat them, it would mean forcing the Demon Kings to break their bond of friendship and have them face opposing directions.
速やかに逃がして やり直すしか道はない。
It must have turned Sakurai's once a member of the obsidian world upside down. Amisko had been rendered spiritless. I never would have expected those two to disagree on something. And in the next moment,
乱心かかる。
with a blinding gold flash, Reinhardt's lance crashed into the ground on which Mercurius had been standing a mere moment before. The beast did not hold back. This was no mere jest. He, in all seriousness, attempted to slay his sworn friend.
いいえ、至極冷静であるよ、獣殿。そうも私が狂っているとおっしゃるなら、それは最初からだろう。
Yet, his obsidian robe fluttering the resulting shockwave, Mercurius merely smiled as his friend completely unscathed. He effortlessly brushed off Reinhardt's hellish terrible attack. That alone stood as ample evidence as to how much of an aberration Carcraft truly was.
私はあなたを裏切りなどしない。ああ、愛も友情もどちらも取る。あなたの上を満たすと言った。あなたの前例を見せると言った。誓いは今もこの胸に捨てず忘れずあり秘めている。ゆえお止めするのだ、獣殿。いいや、昔日のハイドリヒ中将閣下よ。ここであれと、たとえどのような戦をしようと、あなたは全力など出せますまい。このまま続けてどう転ぼうが、私の面目は立たなくなる。許されよ。やはり私が出てきたことで、物語は退屈な様相を帯びてしまった。
Favelsburg had been slowly collapsing, and there existed only two ways to stop its destruction. To open the swastika and completely emanate the Devil's Castle into the physical realm, or to simply kill me. With the castle being on the verge of collapse, they had no time to carry out the former. As for the latter, Reinhardt would end up never attaining his full
あな
power.
たはまだモルゲンデンメルングを記憶しておられるだろうか。あの時と同じ日、同じ時刻、そして増年金との誕生日をもってあなたは生誕せねばならない。しかし、その刻限まではまだ数時間ある。そうした意味でもこれは持つまい。仮に私がバルキュリアとの約定を保護にしても、すべては
Mercurius regarded us with a pair of deep blue eyes, their hue like surging waves of vast ocean.
彼ら実に見事なり、その一言につきましょう。
確かにな。
Was this sudden change indeed merely my imagination?
だが気に入らん。K の手が透けて見える。
My mind couldn't keep up with this constantly fluctuating situation. But there was one thing I could still understand. This was not a reconciliation but a mere compromise. The two leaders of the table, despite facing opposing
早
directions,
々にやりたいことをやるがいい。私を積んだのはポーンでなくジョーカーであり、番ごと覆したのもまた K だ。昔からどこまでも私をなぶるのが好きな男よ。とはいえ、
still had the same goal in mind. Their alliance had not shaken in the
あ
slightest.
の時のように私だっけ。では、あまりにも芸があるまい。
御意に皆まで言わずとも。
Sakura and I gasped at the same time.
ここに新たな黒煙卓の黎明を祝おう。
私と K と
ザミエル、マレウス、シュライバ
ベイにバビロン、バルキュリア。
ー、そしてクリストフ。過去は9人、今もまた。
A swastika lit up on Mercury's palm. 7 out of 8 of its points shimmered with a brilliant light. Even I could tell what that
あ
meant.
の時と同じく、そしてならば今これは不要なり。
With a single twist of the hand, he crushed the giant swastika as easy as one would a raw egg. A raw egg?
そんな
Any possibility of Reinhardt's resurrection had just vanished before our eyes. We should have celebrated with sighs of relief. It might not have been our own achievement, but the crisis had been averted. However,
待てよ。
wouldn't this result
死
in
んだかな、増年金と。
Hibor or Kasumi, or maybe even both? With the destruction of the swastika, there at least one of the two must have perished. My vision turned crimson. I killed the bastard a million times for this. Sakura grasped me by the shoulders. I pressed onwards regardless, momentarily forgetting how severe her injuries were. I must have lost control of myself there for a second. Don't think that filling my mind was the thought of ending that obsidian bastard. And so,
静まれ。
I'd completely forgotten about the other monster.
じき城は現世とのつながりを断ち、再び元に戻される。K の渇望による崩壊を防ぐ。これが第三の方法だ。スワスチカという触媒なくして、私はこの世に関われ。逆もまた真なり。
すなわち君も同じように、こうなってはかのバルハラを崩せない。
とはいえまだ時間はあるな。
He swung his lance in a white arc, knocking away both me and Sakura like we were no more than a pair of pebbles in his way. And
来るがいい。K も収まりがつくまい。もってあと数分そこら。それまでに我ら二人を倒してみろ。
それとも背中を向けて逃げるかね。追いはせんよ。また60年なり100年なり、私たちの再来を恐れながら安穏に逃避も一興。黒煙卓の黎明はそうがたる者が彼に挑むことから始まる。かつてのベイがシュライバーがそうしたように。黄金の破壊を洗礼として味わいたまえ。
違うな。こたびは K も加われ。もはや日和見など許さんぞカール。
とまあそういう次第だ。理解したかね。正直おじけづかれたのではつまらんな。せっかく助けてやったのが無意となる。
I never met a man I want to kill more in my life. Sakura, I'm sorry,
大
but
丈夫。私も同じ気持ちだから。
we were both covered in wounds from head to toe, while the two abominations before us remained completely unscathed. Yet we refused to back down. We would never give up.
私と K と
マキナ、ザミエル、シュライバー。俺と桜井。
ベアトリス。
Counting all those present and all those gone, we had 8 in total. And
俺で9人。
in a way, expect him to pop up out of nowhere.
これで数は揃ったな。
では始めようか。歌うがいい。
I had to make them pay. I was gonna let them get away with this.
今すぐ終わらせてやる。
We would proudly display this stalwart resolve burning in our hearts. The sacred walls of Valhalla were about to bear witness to the final battle.